Right, folks, thanks for inviting me. I've had very kind of short notice to put this together. And those of you who are expecting Indigo, she will be doing a talk again, but she wasn't quite feeling up to it.
Yeah, she's not been well.
So hopefully she'll do a different one. But my name's Andy Chaplin, and just to kind of like gauge where we're at, how many people are kind of completely new to anything in terms of woo-woo, ghosts, spooky, paranormal, okay, all seasoned veterans, fantastic. How many people have actually experienced weird and wonderful things? Everyone, brilliant, okay. So I could have gone in like two different directions with this, and there might be another talk on something else if Dave invites me back, but I could have gone into kind of politics and government and conspiracy, but I think for the moment, as I was sitting down and trying to note all of the things, the weird things that happened in my life, that it stacked up quite a bit, and I thought actually this is going to be an entire talk just on the things that I've experienced. Because it was like one thing led to another thing, and then I think of another thing, and I probably still haven't documented everything, but I've documented the main things that have happened in my life. Right, my background, spirituality, conspiracy, and circus. We live in a clown world, folks. So my background is, I run tuning events, so if you've got a little leaflet like this, this is kind of what we do. If anyone does know any kind of pubs or other clubs or social clubs that want psychic nights and clairvoyant nights, then do let me know or get in contact. That's what we do. Psychic nights, evenings of clairvoyance. Done a few ghost hunts, which is going to come up in the talk actually. Private readings, workshops. I'm also part of the Paranormal Peep Show, and apparently David is also on Paranormal UK Radio.
I used to be.
Used to be. Oh, okay. Funnily enough, Dave Hodrin is still connected, and yeah, I know Dave. He's a good chap, very good chap actually. So I host the Paranormal Peep Show. It's on all of the different things. Neil over here, let's get the laser working. He does the technical side of things, so he records it, uploads it. Apparently, it's on things like Spreaker and YouTube and Podbean and all that kind of thing. Somebody was talking about going to Rendlesham Forest. Somebody mentioned that. And yeah, at the back, yeah. So the Kinsella twins, Philip Kinsella and Ronnie Kinsella, are very into that side of things as well. Rendlesham Forest is a very strange place. I'm not going to kind of spoil, if he does come and have a talk, I'd highly recommend him. I won't kind of like spoil what he's seen and experienced, but it's weird up there. And there's me looking kind of confused. Right, let's get into my life. I hope you find this interesting. I'm basically going to run through a few oddities and anomalies and weird things that have happened in my life. If you find it difficult to view, I would suggest maybe kind of like with those chairs over there, and you might get a better view. I will, hand on heart, say that I will give you the best honest information that I possibly can. I'm not a Christian, and if I was, I would swear on the Bible, but I'm not. But I would swear on my heart that everything I'm about to tell you is from the best of my memory and hand on heart the God's honest truth. It's up to you to believe it or not. You don't have to. You can make up your own minds. So, I was born in 1977, and one of my first experiences, some of these I can't get the exact dates or years, so these are approximates. It was between about 77 and 1980 that I was in a cot late at night, and this was a regular thing that used to happen. And by the way, I've got reservations about using AI, but AI is extremely useful for doing this kind of thing. Most of the images here are generated by AI, and within the space of 2 days, I've managed to compile quite a lot of images. So this is all AI. It's fantastic. I put in something like, from a cot's perspective, with the light shining through a door, show a brown and white teddy bear. So it ain't bad. So there I was in my cot, and I used to remember a deep male voice coming from the direction of a big brown and white teddy bear. I don't know where the teddy bear came from. Maybe my parent won it or something. And it used to say to me, "Hello, what's your name?" I remember a very deep voice. "Hello, what's your name?" I believe that was possibly not negative spirit, but higher spirit or maybe guide spirit. that were trying to connect with me to see if I was ready to communicate. It didn't feel scary as in evil negative, didn't have that vibe, but it was very, very odd. And I remember thinking, I don't like this. I just wanted to kind of like, I hid under the kind of like covers and I wanted it to go away. Now, in this world, I'm sure you're well aware that within the physical world, we have positive people and we have negative people. You could go into a pub and you could meet some wonderful people and have a great chat, or you could get into a fight with a hooligan. The same applies to the spirit world, okay? You have positive and negative. Now, some people view it all as negative. Everything's demons. No, it's not. And some people view it all as positive. Everything's love and light and fluffy and rainbows. No, it's not. It's both. As many kind of levels are there as above as below, basically. So I believe this was spirit guide. I believe this one was on the positive level. And I think if I would have communicated and said, my name's Andy, I think I would have got a dialogue going and I probably would have turned into the kid from Sixth Sense. I think it would have gone in that direction. However, I didn't, and it freaked me out. And yeah, it basically, I wanted it to go away. Right, so, yeah. Everyone's seen Star Wars, yeah? You know the Jawas? Okay. I remember asking my mum, and I remember seeing these things. Now the thing is, it's not quite, it's really kind of difficult to say. It's not quite in the physical world. It was more kind of like, almost like a dream state, but not quite. I suppose you could, some people call it, I think it's either beta state or delta state, where you're kind of in between this world and in the dream world, but you're still lucid enough to know that it's not an actual dream. If you have lucid dreams and kind of interactions with weird things, you will know the difference between something that is lucid and you're aware of it, consciously aware of it, and something that's just kind of like a dream that takes you on a journey. When this happened, I had not seen Star Wars. Even though Star Wars came out in '77, I was too young to see it. But when I saw Star Wars, I thought, oh my God, that's what I saw, the Jawas from Star Wars, but without the glowing eyes. And I specifically didn't, for this AI, I didn't put in glowing eyes because I didn't remember it as glowing eyes. So if anyone would have said, oh, you just watched Star Wars and kind of like dreamt it, well, presumably I would have dreamt it with glowing eyes because they have yellow eyes in Star Wars, but no. And funnily enough, getting into the worlds of UFOs and aliens and that kind of thing, it does turn out that some people do see these troll-like beings. They do kind of like, they're short and they have brown cloaks and they have brown hoods. They're not necessarily negative, by the way. So even though they're kind of like troll-like and you know, some people might say a little bit ugly, they're not exactly negative. Yeah, it was a very strange one, and I did used to have a bit of night terrors thing going on. I did used to remember kind of like waking up. I can't say I've ever seen any greys. I can't say that I've seen greys from memory. Now, I do realise that sometimes memories can change over time, and I do realise that sometimes we can kind of misremember things sometimes. However, the key things with the key principles do embed themselves in your brain. So you might not remember the smaller details, but you do remember kind of like the general kind of thing of what's experienced. Right, the Bunker Shadow Man. This would have been around about 1980 to 87. This would have been, I think it would have been a holiday park actually. So we used to do kind of a lot of caravan parks and that kind of thing, usually kind of wet and soggy, usual type thing. And there was a Second World War bunker. I can't remember if it was by a coast. It might have been like a little pillbox. Pillboxes were actually dotted around all over the UK during the Second World War for the Home Guard to use. This one was very deserted. So this AI isn't quite right. I didn't see the shadow being outside of it. I remember kind of like being with a group of kids, as you do, you go to holiday parks, you make friends with kids. And then basically I remember, I think we were playing a game of hide and seek or chase or something. We didn't have torches and it was very dark in the bunker. But I remember seeing a shadow flicking across. It was a man's shadow or like a human shadow flicking across. I thought it was one of the kids. And I rushed in there to say, "Ha, got you," and there was nothing there. That freaked me out a little bit. had a good look round. Whether they were hiding deep in the bunker, I don't know. But usually they'd kind of, like as kids, you'd make a noise and you'd say, and that kind of thing. But no, just completely quiet. So yeah, you'll sort of have to kind of like look at the look at the logical and rational explanations for some of these things. It's always good to do that and keep an objective mind. Because you can't always kind of like attribute these things to kind of woo-woo type things. So I'm gonna give you the instances that I think are a little bit on the spooky side. It's kind of up to you guys to work out where you want to go with it. Right, this is an interesting one. The AI isn't quite right. I actually look like that. I think like in the 80s it was like a mandatory basin haircut. You had to have that like Beatles style haircut. So I didn't have the glasses. But this was a really interesting thing. So I had a dream when I was in class 1. So this is how I know it's 82 to 83. I was in class 1. And I had a dream that I was sat in the library and I'd been sent to the library for being naughty, and I thought that it was kind of unjustified. And I was given some work to do on a table, so I kind of like was doing kind of like normal classwork at a table. In my dream, library corridor, a blonde-haired girl with blue eyes turns up. She's got a bronze jug of water and she's got a stack of green cups. Now this isn't quite right. She was holding the jug and she was holding the beakers. She came up to me and she said to me, "Oh, have you been naughty?" And I said, No. And we had like some brief kind of conversation. I can't remember if she sat down or anything she did. And then she kind of wandered off. 2 weeks later, I get sent into the library for being naughty, which I thought was unjust, with some work. And you know that feeling when you get hairs at the back of your neck going up like that? Along comes a blonde-haired girl with a bronze jug. This is where you do remember details, when it's like profound enough. And she had a stack of green cups. And she came up to me and she said, "Have you been naughty?" So I was getting major deja vu overload. I basically dreamt this 2 weeks prior and now it was happening. It's absolutely bizarre. A quick show of hands, has anyone had a similar experience to that? Yeah. And would I be right in saying you remember the details, the specific details? Yeah. This is a really interesting one. So although the actual event isn't that profound, like a girl with a jug of water turning up isn't that profound, the profound thing is the actual fact that your consciousness has somehow dipped into something, found some information for something that you shouldn't know about, that then happens. And this, I think, was probably given to me to make me question reality. So if I'm on a spiritual pathway, which I believe I am, I think, well, I was kind of brought up C of E, and I'm not really knocking Christianity, but it's just not for me, really. But I think things like this were to kind of say, Andy, okay, you've got this, you're at a Church of England school, but you know what, there might be something else going on, maybe explore that. This got me thinking for years, how the hell could this happen? How the hell could you have a dream that then comes true? There's so many variables, like, I can't even, like, even the things like the cup and the bronze jug, things like that. What in the universe is creating those circumstances for those exact details to carry out? Floating through the window. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, the laser's stuck on there. Floating through the window. I used to think this was absolutely nuts, and I used to think that this was a dream, and this was way before me investigating anything to do with ghosts, UFOs, aliens, spacecraft, that kind of thing. I've always had an interest in the woo-woo. My favourite programme growing up was Strange But True. That was a little bit later in the 90s with Michael Aspel. Fantastic show, still on YouTube, definitely do go and see that. When I kind of looked back before going into delving down the rabbit hole, I used to put this down to, well, I might just be imagining it. Now, this isn't actually quite right, because I remember going through the glass. This is something actually that a lot of kind of abductee experiencers and UFO experiencers also mention, that sometimes they go through the glass or through walls. It sounds impossible, and this is why, as I was growing up, I thought, well, this can't be happening, this can't be true, because it's impossible. You can't, physically go through that. Surely not. And then I read up on things and saw videos on, oh, actually some people do describe that. Yeah, so another thing actually, within dreams, so this is kind of like the differentiation between dreams and whatever this is. In dreams there's certain things you can't do, apparently. In dreams you can't flick on light bulbs, light switches, apparently. In dreams apparently you can't read things like newspapers or magazines or text. In dreams you can't see your nose. And also in dreams you're unaware of things like wind and kind of temperature. Here's where it gets interesting. When this was happening, I could feel cold because it was outside, and I could feel a slight breeze on me. Light switch thing is irrelevant, seeing the nose thing is irrelevant, but I remember cold breeze and kind of like being outside. Now, where my house was when I was younger, there was like a factory next door, which used to be kind of like the factory my granddad used to own, and there used to be a car park. I remember being taken out through the window. I remember kind of like being dozy, not feeling kind of like completely fully awake, but feeling kind of like a bit dozy and a bit drowsy, but still seeing what's going on. And I remember kind of like being in the car park there and it being slightly cold and there was a breeze. I don't remember, hand on heart, I don't remember seeing any UFOs or spaceships, and I don't remember seeing any greys. I do remember seeing the trolls. And this is why I used to ask my mum, what were the trolls? What were the trolls? Why were the trolls there? And of course she used to say, oh, it's just nothing. Now my grandmother used to read me a book called The Billy Goat's Gruff, and that was my favourite book, and it had trolls under the bridge. I don't believe it was just imagination pinging off that, because this was very specific. And also the Billy Goat's Gruff trolls look completely different from the trolls that I saw. The best word I could use to describe the kind of Jawa-like beings from Star Wars was trolls. That was my best kind of vernacular with that. Do you know how to kind of turn this on and off?
Sure, a little switch at the top. Is it not working?
Off the top, is it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so,
I've lost its flickability now. Yeah, the laser got stuck on and then it's no longer flicking. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Cheers, baby. The creepy baldy man. This is a little bit later, so between the kind of deja vu type thing and the floating through the window type thing. And by the way, I don't know what they were doing. I don't remember anything to do with kind of alien probes or anything like that. I just haven't got any memory of that. I'm almost scared to get hypnotised and go back into regression type thing. It would be kind of interesting, but I don't know. I don't know. It could also be a bit harrowing. Who knows? I do remember this as being quite creepy. So there was again, it was kind of like a lucid, half dream, half awake state. And for this particular one, it wasn't so much me being dragged outside, but my consciousness, if you like, was kind of like outside. And I knew that outside, down kind of where the pathway in the garden was, there was a group of tall, kind of very bald guys, and I got the real heebie-jeebies. These guys are bad news. I knew that. This was terrifying. This was terrifying, and I was just kind of like, you just know this kind of, you know, if you were kind of like walking down the street and you see like a bunch of hoodlums and it's like a dark night, it's kind of like, okay, right, let's just avoid that, shall we? The creepy baldy man. It was around about 93 to 95. I don't remember anything else other than them just showing up and me being freaked out, and I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So that was quite good. I managed to avoid them, I hope. Missing cat and the psychic. Oh, bless him. This is my little James cat. So this is how I got into the psychic side of things. So in around about 1999 to 2000, I got little James cat, bless him. He went missing, and I just kind of thought, I was always into kind of the spooky woo side of things, but I thought it'd be quite, I don't know, it was like a last resort to go and see a psychic, actually. She was a very good psychic in Epping. I'm not sure if she's even still with us, because she's fairly kind of like in her older years, way back then. what was interesting is that although she didn't really pick up on him, it was a difficult one. She thought he might come back, but what transpired was it was really bizarre. There was a very similar looking cat just after this that used to hang around, and you'll notice kind of like the little beard type thing going on. Little beard there. This cat was almost exactly the same, black and white with a little beard and the nose thing. It turns out that it wasn't the same cat. I believe that the psychic was kind of like tuning in to seeing a similar cat. She thought it might be him, but it turns out it wasn't him. Just a very kind of like almost identical cat, which is weird in itself. But she told me things that kind of, other things, not just about the cat, but things that came true in my life. I actually can't remember the specifics, but it was things that kind of like, I suppose, kind of 2000, 2001, 2002, looking back, I was thinking, oh, that came true, that's interesting, that came true. And that kind of sparked me off, kind of like down the lines of spiritualism. So I actually kind of joined two circles, one in Chesham and one in Hoddesdon. And I joined what's known as Open Circles. Most of you guys know what Open Circles is, I'm sure. And that's how I kind of like got into the whole psychic thing myself. Back in the days of internet dial-up, I actually started off going into kind of psychic chat rooms just for fun. And that was quite interesting. So there's, I forget the names of them, but you could go into chat rooms, you had to dial up, and you couldn't actually see the person that you were kind of talking to. It was very, very basic. It was just literally kind of text and chat going on. And somebody actually challenged me and said, can you do me a reading? And I thought, oh, I can't do a reading, it's a chat room. But weirdly, like I just kind of like, almost, I shut my eyes and just kind of, they just said, relax and breathe and see what you get. And I did that, and I was beginning to get images, and I was beginning to get things coming through. And it turns out that the things that I was getting, the people were confirming. So whether it was names or whether it was kind of like, I used to do a bit of remote viewing actually. I used to kind of like dip my consciousness into their lives and kind of see what's going on, where they're living, all that kind of thing. And yeah, that was quite interesting. So that very much got me down the psychic side of things. This is interesting. So 1999 and 2000, I was at university and I entered a photography competition for the Independent magazine. I actually got a commendation. Didn't win it, I didn't get first or second, but I got a commendation. I think I won a camera from it as well. This is what I took a photo of. Street cleaner, an old guy. It was a bit naughty actually, because it was kind of like a documentary photography style, and I knew if I just go up to him and kind of like take a photo straight on, he'd probably say no, 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 or something like that. So I sneakily kind of like pretended to take a photo over here and quickly went around and snapped it, which he probably wasn't too happy about. But no. So that's a close-up. There it is. Attitude. I was going around with my camera and I saw this street cleaner sit down. I didn't ask his permission beforehand. Sorry. And I don't think he was too happy about being photographed. But I find if you ask people they pose, that's true. He would have kind of gone into a different pose. I prefer black and white. The more powerful images you get. How does this relate to this? This was a street cleaner in Hoddesdon in Hertfordshire. He was there almost every day, or like whenever I go to the market or anything like that, go to the shops, he was there doing his street cleaning. Until one day, when he wasn't there. Now, because I won an award for this, I actually printed this out and I blew it up and I put it on the wall in my room. Because I was quite proud of it. I think it's still quite a good shot. So imagine that, kind of printed out on my wall. This little James cat, bless him, one night, in the darkness, sprang off my bed. This was before he went missing. He went straight under that image there, straight under, and he was just looking at it. Just looking at it. And I thought, you're picking up on him dying, aren't you? This little pussycat, I believe, picked up on the spirit of that guy. And I wouldn't mind betting that when this guy, and I, respect to him, I don't know what his name is, but I believe that when he passed over to spirit, if you found out that you had actually been entered into a competition of a national newspaper, you might want to go and find out what the picture looks like.
Yeah.
I believe his spirit possibly wanted a little bit of a kind of like a quick check-in. So imagine him passing away, bless him, and like a spirit guide or spirit going, oh, by the way, oh, you've had a fantastic life, yeah, welcome aboard, this is your family, oh, by the way, your picture's in a national newspaper. What? So I believe he probably popped in to see the image of him, and I swear blind that my little James cat picked up on his image, or knowing when he passed over. That I can't prove it, none of this that I'm saying I can prove, but hand on heart I'm giving you the best account that I possibly can of my experiences. So I say God bless to this fella here, and also to my little Chrissy cat as well. The Grandad Orb of Light. So when I got into kind of like the spiritualist type of thing and the mediumistics kind of websites and that kind of thing with kind of the chat rooms, a lot of weird things were happening. A lot of strange things were happening. This was very much on the positive side. Now I know it was between 2000 and 2005, because 2000 was when I started getting into the psychic woo-woo side of things, and 2005 is when one of my other granddads passed over. So I know which granddad that's going to be, because one of my granddads up until 2005 was still alive, and one passed over. So it was around about 2000 to 2005. I was sat there watching TV, and I basically heard the word in my mind, Grandad, and at the top left-hand corner was this little shoot of light. The best way I could describe it, and I've seen quite a few of these, if you see kind of arc welders, and you see the little sparks flying off arc welding, that's what it looks like. Hands up, how many people have seen these before? Yeah, quite a few. It's interesting, isn't it? So when you view things like Most Haunted and kind of like ghost programs on TV and that kind of thing, it is good to look at the rational explanations like moths or insects or dust or things like that. Sometimes it can be that, but when you see these things with the naked eye, it kind of alters your reality. And I didn't get any bad vibes. I actually found this quite a beautiful experience. It was basically Grandad. I think my granddad, I call him Granddad Chaplin because he's on that side of the family. I think he was basically coming to say hello. That's what I think he was doing. The other thing is actually, I once followed a snowflake up the stairs. I say a snowflake, it basically was an orb of light. It was bizarre. I was kind of walking up the stairs, and right in front of me, that far away, a little kind of orb of light was going up into the loft.
Nice.
Bizarre. Not scary at all. The Nightwalker Man. Around about 2002 to 2005, this is a nature reserve in Hertfordshire. I do a lot of walking at night, and it's quite therapeutic and meditative. And I don't really have a fear of kind of, even though I'm into like the mediumistic side of things, I don't really have a fear of ghosts and that kind of thing. I kind of feel like this is our planet, we're alive, we're allowed to be here, and if you do see spirit, they don't really do much anyway. But the Nightwalker Man, this was kind of like, this is the actual spot where it happened. So you kind of like, you walk around there, and then it kind of like bows round, and it goes up there. There's a river as well next to it. I was walking along, it was dark time, and by the way, these photos are me recreating it. This is not me actually at the time of it. These are me taking photographs after it's happened. These are quite recent actually, but I know the areas where it did happen. So I was walking along, I was on my own, I think it was quite cold, it might have been kind of like autumn time. It was fairly late at night. I was walking along, and in the distance I could see a figure moving towards me. What was quite interesting is that usually if you go for a walk at night, you'd have a torch. And you'd expect either, if you don't have a torch, maybe the other person would have a torch. But coming the other way was a guy that kind of, not a million miles away, looking like that. He had kind of like a long wax jacket on. I remember having a hat, and he didn't have a torch, and I didn't have a torch. So if you imagine this, and this was actually quite dark, so you pretty much only got either moonlight or starlight, or very, very kind of like coming up to full pitch black. But still light enough that you could tell kind of like shapes. So coming towards me with this figure, and I was thinking, oh my God, am I seeing things? But then I started thinking, is this a spirit? Is this a ghost? Again, I didn't get a negative feeling. And I actually walked straight up to him, and he stood in front of me, and I thought, I've got to get a torch out now. I've got to see what's going on here. I flicked on the torch, and it illuminated him, so he was there, he appeared real, but he didn't say a word. He didn't say one word, he just looked at me and smiled. And I think I said, I felt like I should say something like, I thought, thank goodness you're real, I thought I was seeing a ghost or something, but I didn't actually say that. I said something along the lines of, oh hello, or good evening, or something like that, I can't remember, but it wasn't, are you a ghost? So, was that a physical man? I don't know. You know, when you have these kind of experiences, it feels different. You know, it's like if you talk to mediums or if you see spirit itself, you can tell the difference between a physical person and a spirit person. How many people have actually seen spirit or ghosts? Okay, yeah. And you probably agree that it's a slightly different feeling. The whole vibe of it is very different from like a physical person. So, yeah. Make of that what you will. Paranormal interactions, that's my dad, bless him, he's in spirit. Okay, so he had a disease that was similar to Alzheimer's. It wasn't a particularly nice passing. He didn't believe in any of this kind of thing. Well, at least I don't think he did. He kind of like, my mum was kind of C of E, and she kind of dragged him to church sometimes. I don't know if it was really his thing or not. But my house turned into Paranormal Central for about a year or so. My personal belief is when you pass over to spirit, you get a short window of opportunity to really do physical stuff and to kind of interact with your loved ones down here before the chance the final door is open and you go through. Now when mediums do kind of connections with spirit years later, they do come in and say a quick hello, but it's not quite as kind of physical as it is. It's kind of to do with dimensions and going up dimensions. So when they pass over, especially if it's quite traumatic, so this is quite a traumatic one actually, they're very much interacting with the world around them. Sometimes you get what's known as stuck spirits or stuck ghosts. They're not really stuck, they believe they're stuck, but they haven't got an exit point. They don't really kind of know what's going on, and so they kind of can hang around a little bit. But generally speaking, most spirits will kind of eventually pass over. My dad had a window of opportunity to interact, and especially because over the other side, he would be well aware that I was getting into mediumship and psychic stuff. I think that when you're into the psychic and the spiritual, I think spirit think, oh, okay, they're not going to be too freaked out. I'm going to start playing with them in a good way, in a fun way. And he did. So I would come downstairs and I'd sometimes see kind of like, I used to play chess a lot on like an electronic chess set. I'd come down and after having kind of like put all the chess pieces together and gone upstairs, there'd be one chess piece that's moved to the side. And this kept happening. So it wasn't proper spooky stuff. It wasn't anything that was like really negative, and I didn't feel negative. It was just odd stuff. The lights used to flicker. So okay, you can have bad electronics, sometimes that can happen, but I'd be watching TV and it was usually kind of when I was watching TV the lights would start flickering. Another thing that used to happen is like the, back in the, this is quite a long time ago, with hi-fis, with the CD tray, when you press the button it flips up, that used to go off all the time, sit there watching TV and it'd go, take it down. Books used to like half pull out of the shelves, not in front of me, but I used to kind of like go along and see, oh, there's one book that's pulled out. I don't remember it having any particular relevance, although there was one of my books that was pulled out that was about ghosts. That was quite interesting. What else used to happen? So my dad's deterioration towards the end meant that he kind of regressed a little bit, almost in childhood kind of thing. And so he was surrounded by kind of fluffy toys and that kind of thing. There was one particular cat toy that he had where you press the paw and it used to go do 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 do. It used to play a song, and that would only play if you pressed the paw. There's no other way of it pressing. There was no device like this to actually get it going. You had to press the paw. That was going off constantly, all the time. Again, I'd be watching TV. And it could I don't just spend my life watching TV, but for some reason I think maybe because you're when your mind is kind of like engaged with something and you're not thinking about things, spirit can kind of like interact and kind of merge with you. So, and none of this was negative. I did have some negative things happen, but nothing to do with that. When you're delving into kind of like the mediumistic side, you will brush up against some things. I've had what's known as dream invaders. I remember, this is a really bizarre one. I remember like a very kind of stereotypical Scottish guy with a tartan kilt and a sporran and like big ginger hair, and it's just ridiculous. This is why it's called, I include circus in the title of this talk, because it just gets crazy sometimes, mental. And this Scottish guy in kind of like a lucid dream type state kind of put his hand out, and he was kind of smiling and saying, "Shake my hand." And I thought, "I don't like you, mate." And he was like, "Shake my hand." And then he was getting more aggressive, "Shake my hand." And then as I was kind of like in the spiritual community, I was in contact with my guides, and my guide is Alan, and I said, "Alan, can you get me out of this?" And boom, I woke up out of it. I would say to you, if you ever get any negative dream interactions, and if you work with your guides, ask your guide, "Can you get me out of this?" And usually 9 times out of 10, they will get you out of it. Might be a bit of a start, it might be a bit of a like that, but they'll usually get you out of it. So there is positive and there is negative in the spiritual world. Try if you can to interact with the positive. This was probably the most fundamental, profound thing that's ever happened in my life. And it looks so inconsequential, but it was just mind blowing. So my dad, he was kind of into everything to do with marines and water and aquatics and boats and harbours and sailing. He was very water oriented. That's where the kind of the Chaplin family are, surrounding kind of water and things like that. And we used to have a dolphin fridge magnet. This is a Photoshop reconstruction, but it was pretty much a fridge magnet like this. I used to come downstairs and I used to notice in the morning that this fridge magnet was at a slight angle, and I kind of chuckled to myself, is that Dad doing that? And I'd correct it. And then I'd come down the next morning, it's at an angle again, I'd correct it. You could logically, and you do have to look at the logical things rationally, you could think maybe someone's opened the door and they've shut it and maybe it's jolted a little bit. So this kept happening until I go running a lot sometimes, and when I go running, I come back and I kind of put a meal in. This would have been around about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. There was no one kind of like in the downstairs area or the kitchen area. My mum and my brother were asleep upstairs. They were nowhere downstairs. I was in the kitchen and I had just corrected the dolphin fridge magnet. I had just corrected it. Notice it was in the middle of the fridge. Okay. I've got some rice pudding. I go up to a microwave, open the microwave. Swear on my heart this happened. I felt 3 tugs on my shirt. 1, 2, 3. I went. Then I heard a click of metal, and that had happened. Now, I'm sorry if there's any skeptics who think, "Oh wow, it doesn't really exist, it's just your mind, you're just delusional." Well, it could have just kind of like, a lorry might have gone past and jolted and, no, I'm sorry, that was about an 8-inch movement. It had gone from there to there. And the click of metal implies that it would have been taken off and then put back on. So it didn't slide, it got clicked on. I looked around everywhere. Upstairs, downstairs, someone playing a joke. It's my brother, it's my mum. And by the way, after the click, I turned around immediately. I 100% would have noticed if there was a physical person there. 100%. And I would have heard the footsteps. Like, that is the most profound thing that's ever happened in my life. Okay. The disappearance show. So I go running quite a lot. This is Pepper Hill in Hertfordshire. This is where. Now this photo is obviously a reconstruction, and the silhouette is a reconstruction. I only had 2 days to put this together, but this is the best way I can describe it. This was around about November time, and it was cold, it was frosty, and there was no traffic on the roads whatsoever. I was running down, and it was probably, from this perspective, about here, that I saw a silhouette, and it looked like a girl wearing a backpack, and she was, this isn't quite right, she was hunched, and she was running across the road, like that. I thought that was a bit weird for several reasons. Number one, why would you need to run? Because you're not running from any traffic. Number two, it was about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. It's a bit of a strange time to be out. Why she got a backpack, and where's she running to? Over here we've got horse fields and kind of there's nothing there. Now there is a footpath that goes along there, so technically speaking she could be heading towards there, but it was something like a Tuesday. It wasn't even kind of like, if you'd imagine kind of like a weekend, maybe scouts or guides or something might be out and about, but a Tuesday, I don't know. So this is kind of like an interpretation of what I think it probably would like if I was closer. I didn't, by the time she got across, so if you go back to here, by the time I kind of got to where she was there, she'd already gone to there. So what's actually over here is a bus stop. Oh, one of the images is missing, I think. But anyway, at this bus stop, there was basically some flowers laid down. There's some flowers laid down, and kind of like where I was looking, basically there was just nothing but kind of like fields beyond that, and it was pitch black as well. So there was street lamps, but it was pitch black. Where was she running to? Why was she there? And by the way, what I'm saying is by the time I got there, she disappeared. She's not there. She's not in the fields. She's not around here. I couldn't see anyone. There was just flowers by the bus stop, and she wasn't there waiting. This is one of the weirdest things that has ever happened in my life as well. I still, to this day, have no idea and no logical explanation what the hell is going on with this. This is an AI interpretation. It's not quite right, because it's actually kind of like along a dual carriageway. That's more like it. Essex 02, driver's car, Stephen. This sounds mental. By the way, I appreciate that this does sound absolutely crackers, but here we go. I don't know what's going on with this. So during the period of time, and for some reason, the crunch period of most of the weird things happening in my life seemed to be around about early 2000s to mid 2000s. It sort of died off a little bit beyond that. But I used to go to a Cineworld in Stevenage with a group of friends of mine on quite a regular basis, like Fridays and Saturdays. We used to pile into a car and we used to drive to the cinema. On one particular occasion, I remember we came up to a car. I can't remember what type of car. I do remember it being kind of like fairly kind of compact. I don't remember the exact colour of it. And it was going really slowly, and it was very, very odd. And we needed to go and see the film quite quickly, so I thought, let's hurry up. So I wasn't driving, I was in the rear passenger side, and I said to our driver, I said, oh, might as well overtake this one, because it's going too slowly. We overtook it, and this was around about this kind of light actually. It was summertime, probably around about 7 or 8 o'clock. It wasn't quite full daylight, definitely wasn't dark, so it was about this kind of light. We drove past, looked in, and there's multiple people that saw this, and there was no driver and no passengers. And we're not talking a midget or a dwarf or a little old lady like this. There was nothing. And it just like, the person in front, in the passenger seat, basically said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "There's no one driving." I said, "Oh no." No explanation, no idea. One of the main things when I pass over to Spirit, and if I meet my guides or angels, etc., one of the things I'm going to be asking them is, what's that about? What's that about? Now, we do have driverless cars now. Elon and Tesla, all that kind of thing, are doing it now. But this is 2007. Now, even if a company was doing prototypes of driverless cars, why on earth would they be doing it on a public road? In a kind of environment like a warehouse or kind of like a private area for testing, absolutely fine. I wouldn't be surprised if Elon or other companies were working on driverless cars, you know, way back, maybe they were working it in that era. However, taking it onto a public road, I'm not sure that's legal for a start. I have no explanation for this whatsoever. And I'm prepared at any point to go on a polygraph, so if anyone's sceptical and saying you're making it up, I'll happily do a polygraph. I didn't get this quite right. I put in something like a couple laughing in a cafe. But anyway, I had 2 incidents of this, and there was kind of like strange things that were going along. Because the thing is, when you delve into the woo-woo, it's not just the spirit and the ghosts and the aliens and the UFOs. Reality itself can shift, which is where I think the driverless car thing was all about. I think this was, I don't know who was changing reality, whether it was my own projection of reality, whether the car was a hologram, whether it was some kind of alien technology kind of beaming it into it. I don't know. I do not know. But this was an odd one. So the first time this happened, I was in some kind of social club, sports type club. This isn't the actual building, but it represents a similar type thing. So around about 2004, this is how I know the approximate time, I got into doing psychic fairs. So I went from the spiritualist community into kind of like doing psychic fairs, and I eventually kind of moved out of doing the psychic fairs into kind of organising the psychic fairs, which is kind of what I do now. But in this particular one, which I think might have been around about Boreham Wood area, Rickmansworth area, I had such a bizarre thing. So I was sat in a similar kind of situation to this. It would have been me doing readings, and it would have been somebody having being read. And I was sitting there, and I was kind of like saying different things. And I noticed there was a group of women to the side, and they were narrating what I was saying. And they were kind of like, oh, you're talking about this now. Oh, he's mentioning that now. Oh, he's talking about New York now. And it was really pissing me off. It was really kind of getting up my goat. And I thought they were just taking the pee. And it was just such a bizarre thing. Like, why would they need to narrate my life? I had to be professional, so I didn't say anything. I finished the reading. I tried to block them out, and I just kind of like carried on working as I was working. Here's the bizarre bit. So you could put it down to just some people being a bit of a dick and just kind of like taking the pee. But I went up to them, and I actually, because I'm not afraid to do this, I actually went up to them to challenge them. I said, excuse me, would you mind shifting position? Because like I'm trying to do readings here, and you've been going through every single thing that I'm saying and just kind of like taking the pee. This is where it gets weird. They looked at me like they had no idea what I was talking about. Now, you would think if I'd caught somebody out, they'd either look a bit sheepish and a bit ashamed, or they'd be kind of like giggling, or kind of saying, or something like, you know, go screw yourself, or something like that. But they genuinely had, I don't know what you're talking about. And they were talking to me in a very normal, kind of like passive, kind of like voice. And then I started questioning, like, did I hear this right? Weird. I don't know if something was screwing with my perception of reality. Now, if I was in a psychiatric office and I sat down, a psychiatric nurse would probably say you've got schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder or some kind of psychiatric condition. The only thing with that is that these incidences only happen twice, so presumably somebody with like an actual mental condition would have it on a regular, ongoing basis, but this only happened twice. And also, those if people do have psychotic episodes, usually they're unaware that they're in a psychotic episode. I was questioning this. I was thinking, is this real? Kind of like trying to work out what was real with this. And the other time this happened was in Brighton. It was in a cafe. It's so bizarre. It might have been a couple of years later. I'm not sure. I was with a French girl that had visited over to England, and we were walking around Brighton, and we sat in a cafe, and I was eating food. She was eating food. And there was basically a couple sitting there narrating everything that I was doing. Oh, he's got that on his plate. Oh, he's picking his food now. Oh, look at the way he's talking to her. Oh, and all this kind of thing. And the weird thing is, the way that it was being said and narrated felt exactly the same as if in this situation with the clubhouse kind of thing. It was almost as if, I don't know, whatever was happening with in terms of perception of reality with that was also happening with that. I don't know. Maybe I was going crazy. Who knows? I actually don't care what people think, and I'd like to get to come to the bottom of this as well. Nuisance phone calls. So, 2000 and 2007. Now, we've all had nuisance phone calls. We've all got the call centres calling up. We've all got them kind of like asking, you know, have you had an accident, blah, 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 blah. That's pretty normal, okay? But what's not quite normal is to get them at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I will actually say, although we've got a call centre guy here, most of the phone calls I was getting, the phone that I had made this really weird high-pitched noise before it was going to happen. And then the phone would start ringing, and I'm thinking, pick up the phone, and usually there'd be either nothing there, or there'd be like a clicking sound. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this? And this was happening again, and again, and again, and again. Who's heard of the term targeted individual, or TI? Yeah. I think I was on some kind of TI list. Now, when I was getting into the whole psychic thing, I was also doing a bit of remote viewing. I think, what I suspect is, if you're kind of communicating with spirit and doing clairvoyance for people, I don't think, let's call them the dark hats, have much of an interest in you, really, other than can you do anything for them. As soon as you go remote viewing and start going in places that maybe you shouldn't be going in, I think you ping up on a radar, quite frankly. And I think I might have been pinged on a radar. Recent phone call. The reason why that's there is because one of the phone calls was late at night, and it sounded to me like 2 drag queens. And I'm going to do the voice. It's quite funny. This is why I call it kind of like spirituality, conspiracy, and circus. This is the circus bit. The phone call went something like this: "Hi Andy, how are you? We really like a reading from you." And I was like, "Oh, really?" It's like there was 2 of them, and they were going back and forth. And it was like, "Oh, can you do us a reading? Like, we really need a reading." And I was just like, "It's really late, guys. Can we kind of like do this another time?" And like, "Oh, but we really need a reading now." And I was like, "Yeah, just call back another time," and then just hung up, basically. I don't know. Could it have been people that found me in Yellow Pages? But 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. Who phones people for a reading? 2 o'clock in the morning. Who's heard of sliding? Anyone heard of sliding? Oh, okay, right. Sliding, and you can look this one up. Sometimes there are some people, and it seems to be people on a psychic persuasion, when they go under street lamps, the street lamps can turn off. Oh. And then you come away from the street lamp, and they turn back on again. Now, you could put this down to faulty street lamp. Look at the rational first. But when it happens again, and again, and again, and there's one particular street lamp near me, actually, where I could kind of like almost guarantee this was going to happen. I would test it. I'd go along, and it'd go off, and I'd come back, and it'd go on. I think that's interesting. Do it again, and it'd go off. And okay, so street lamps are on sensors, right? So when it gets dark, the street lamp senses that, and the street lamp goes off. And then in the morning time, the sun comes up, the street lamp goes off again. So what difference would it make having a human way away from the street lamp? What difference would it make you being there or not? Why would that have any bearing whatsoever on the electronics of that? But there we are. The most profound, I suppose, experience with sliding, I did a psychic fair in Welling Garden City, and as I was driving past, I counted 6 street lamps going off above me. I kid you not. I was driving under it. This was after doing kind of like readings and things. But the weird thing is, why doesn't it happen after every reading? Why doesn't it happen after every psychic fair? That's what I don't get. So, drive under, 1 street lamp goes off. Oh, that's interesting. Tuning with spirit, that makes sense, energy. Second street lamp, that goes off. Oh, that's a bit weird. 3rd one, okay, so getting freaking out. 4th one, I'm looking outside for UFOs. 5th one, okay. 6th one, this is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And then, from then on, beyond those ones, all the other street lamps are absolutely fine. Don't know what's going on there. Very strange. Yeah, this is part of the TI thing. I would go jogging, I'd go running, and there'd be cars coming towards me, flashing their headlights at me. And sometimes there'd be kind of yobs shouting out the window. And you can imagine, okay, yeah, you know, that's kind of like what young lads do sometimes, but it was happening again and again and again. But also, when I was out personally driving in my car, I would have people tailgating me and flashing their headlights at me. And not only that, was I would be driving and people coming towards me would also be flashing their headlights at me. It got to the point where I was pulling my car over to the road and checking out whether, you know, is there something wrong with my car? Are they flashing in terms of kind of like, have I got a brake light out? Have I got an indicator out? What's going on with that? Very strange. Right, is that our cue for a break?
I think we're about due a tea break.
Right. So it's interesting, a few people came up to me during the break and told me about some of their experiences, and the TI thing is definitely a thing. It seems to be my opinion, I think the consensus of most people in this world opinion, is that once you start doing remote viewing type things and you drift off away from love and light and into kind of what's going on in different parts of the world, that's when you ping up on some kind of radar somewhere along the line, and that seems to be why this was happening. I believe maybe it kind of wound down a little bit kind of 2007, because I didn't really do much remote viewing and I wasn't really going as deep with meditations. I think also when I was with the spiritualist community and kind of like doing readings myself online, I was very much going into quite deep meditations. I was actually visualising, kind of connecting with the universe and connecting with kind of like, whether it's higher beings or whether it's angels or whether it's kind of ETs on a high level. That's what I was kind of trying to do. And I suspect I might have been on someone's radar. What I will say actually is sometimes it's really strange. Sometimes I'll be watching television or I'll be kind of like at home and I would feel as if there was somebody else in the room. But the weird thing is that it didn't actually feel like it was like a spirit. It seemed like the energy was different from somebody who passed over in spirit. It felt like there was somebody alive that remotely projecting themselves into the room to see what I was doing. That's what it felt like. It felt very different from sitting down and doing mediumship and, you know, you've got your nan here, etc. It's a different vibration. It was a kind of like, oh, who's this? But they don't feel dead. They feel kind of like they're in an office somewhere spying on what I'm doing. And this is where we get to, if it works properly, this. How many have seen them? 100%, hand on heart. Not only do these exist, but they do fly around people's houses. Now you might get some military experts that say, oh no, they're not allowed to fly around civilian. No, they're banned from flying around. No, they are. They do fly around civilian houses. I've had them. Now, I will say that I am on a flight path. I am on the flight path of Stansted, Heathrow and Gatwick. However, these fly quite at low altitude, and I have had experiences where they've circled my house. They've been different types of helicopters. It used to be either regular civilian helicopters, sometimes police helicopters, but then these little boys started turning up. They're quite specific, they're quite elongated, they've got a little gun mount, and the big giveaway is this. You've got the little radar mount at the top there. I've had several situations where they've been circling around the house. So at the same time as I was getting the weird phone calls with the strange kind of noises happening, and sometimes usually they just hang up, at that same time I was occasionally getting helicopters. Now again, the rational side of me, and it was always kind of late at night, and I'm a bit of a night owl, so I'm usually watching TV or on the computer or whatever at 2 o'clock in the morning. The rational side of me thinks that, oh, it's a helicopter, maybe it's kind of like the police are looking for a burglar, they're checking out the area. Or maybe they're just kind of like, sometimes they'll put on thermal and they'll go over rooftops to see whose house has got like a high heat signature, which could indicate growing marijuana or something. They do that. Apparently in winter time, a big giveaway of marijuana growers is their roof has no snow on it. So the logical side of me thinks that, but then it was happening again, and again, and again, And I'm thinking, well, how many people go missing late at night in this area do they need to keep sending out helicopters for? For civilian helicopters, apparently like a paramedic helicopter or police helicopter, I'm told the cost of running it is something like £1,600 per half hour. £1,600 per half hour. What the hell are you buzzing around my house at £1,600 on taxpayers' expense? For what? Well, this is where we get into the TI side of things. I suspect there is some kind of division somewhere, some little black military operation that is keeping tabs on people like us, people who are. I mean, this is where it goes into clown world. I've actually brought. This isn't like if people are watching this from the government or whichever little department is sending these around our houses, that is for you. Okay? Clowns. So what is the purpose of it? I think the purpose of it is to intimidate people, to stop people from talking, to shut people down. Well, that worked, didn't it, folks? I think it's to get people to kind of perhaps go a bit crazy. I actually think the incidences where I've had the narration thing going on, I think it's to try and drive you nuts. I think it's so you end up thinking, are you crazy? Do you want to check yourself into a mental institute or something like that? That actually brings me on to something else that I've not put on here actually. One of the weird phone calls I got, so this would have been circa 2000, 2007, that sort of era. One of the phone calls I got was around about the afternoon time, and it was a guy who I would say has got very much mental conditions. Okay, he was genuinely psychotic or genuinely schizophrenic. The way he was talking was like this. I'll give a demonstration, and this isn't to kind of like denigrate anybody that's got a mental condition. It's not about that, but I will give you a demonstration of what he sounded like on the phone. He was like, "Oh man, like the government, man, they've got like radar, and they're like tracking everything you do. Like you've got to see what's going on, man. They're tracking everyone." And the way he was talking, like speech pattern, what he was talking about, was very much kind of. This is where it gets really weird. It was very much on the conspiratorial level, but at that point in life, number one, I had not put anything out there in the public that I was into anything to do with conspiracy. But what I was doing was delving a little bit down the road of the conspiracy. So I was looking at things like Alex Jones, David Icke, Jordan Maxwell, etc. I was delving down that road. I was also delving down the road of kind of ETs, reptilians, greys, etc. I started off in around about 2000 as everything's love and light. Everything's rainbows and there's angels and it's spiritualism and your nan loves you and all that kind of thing. And it was quite a rude awakening and quite a disappointing awakening to actually realise there's a bit of a darker side to this as well. So at that time, I also got this weird phone call that was talking about things from a guy who'd obviously got mental health conditions, talking about things that I was looking into. And I thought, how? Why? Where did he get my number from? How would he know that I'm into this kind of thing? What's going on with this? Now, you're probably aware of 1471. You press that, certainly with BT, and it calls back. After the phone call, I wasn't rude to him. I'm not rude to people. I just said, "Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you." Phone call ended. I did 1471. Guess where it went to? Psychiatric unit.
Oh.
Person who answered it was a receptionist lady, and I said, "I don't suppose this is a psychiatric unit, is it?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, I think one of your patients might have called me." She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." That was it. Where did he get my number? Why did he call me? Out of all the people, let's say I'm in the phone book. Why did he go to my number to call me? Was it the universe? Was it spirit helping him in some way? Was it him tuning? I don't know, but it's a very strange one. Yeah, helicopters at 2 AM. I'm not going to ruin Indigo's talk because she has got a talk at some point here, so I'm not going to go into the experiences that she's had, but I may drift into shared experiences that both myself and Indigo have had. I've known Indigo since probably about 2015. and we're friends, and we've had some odd things happen together at the same time. One of them is these bloody helicopters. So it would have been an afternoon, I don't know what year it is, probably within the past 6, 7, 8 years. I lose track really. And I'd noticed, I think I'd come back from airsoft. So I do airsoft, which is kind of like paintball, and you dress up in military stuff and you know, shoot each other with plastic pellets and stuff. It's great fun. It's a good switch off from all the conspiracy and the spiritual stuff. Okay, so I come back and I kind of like, I'm unpacking my stuff and getting everything kind of out of its bags and stuff. And I noticed one of these buggers flying around outside. And I'm thinking, really? And this was like very, very close to the house, and it was very much kind of doing a circle. Now, Indigo, at that point, lived about 2 miles away from me. So I was in one place and she was 2 miles away. That helicopter, and I watched it, went from my house and I could see where it was going. It was heading towards her house. I'm on WhatsApp or Messenger or whatever it is we had, and I'm messaging her and I'm saying, Indigo, have you got a helicopter outside your house? And she goes, yes, it's outside my house, it's been circling. So they know what we're doing and where we'll be, and they know that we're connected. But again, why? There's different explanations or theories about what these things are. Number one, human military black ops. That's the first explanation. Number two, this is where it gets really, really weird. Possibly holograms created by ETs to make us think that they're helicopters, when it could just be a little silver orb, but we're looking at it as if it's a helicopter, which could be the same thing as the narrations of my life and things like that. Is there some entity or entities projecting that into my mind, making me think a group of women is talking about me, narrating my life? Go up to them, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Possibilities. The thing with the flashing headlights as well, I'm wondering, because there's two possibilities with this. Possibility number one is there's some kind of sad, pathetic military outfit that is employing people, basically saying, this person's going to be on this road at this time, flash your headlights at them, which kind of seems implausible. Like, what the hell? I know spies and police and kind of like they trail people and they follow people, but really? The other possibility, could it be there are some forces or entities or energies that are for somehow hijacking people's, oh, we've gone off. No, up the back. Are there some people who are hijacking people's consciousnesses as they're driving, making them flash the headlights and then jumping out again? Almost like semi-possession. So imagine, do you know what? When you're driving, you're in a different state of mind. Did you know that? So they've actually tested this. When you're driving, it's like your regular consciousness switches off, and by the time you get to the destination, it's like you don't even remember the journey. You're on autopilot. What a fantastic frame of mind for something to jump in and take over for a bit. And it could even just be momentary. So somebody's driving along, there's an entity that wants to flash headlights at this person just to annoy them or whatever pathetic reason, and it is pathetic. Jump into this person driving along, get to flash the headlight, jump out again. They don't know what's going on, they're carrying on, and the person being flashed at is like, what bloody hell's going on? That's an explanation. That I'm veering more towards that as a possibility than an actual government agency that is employing people. You kind of would have thought at some point somebody might have spoken up and said, you know, I'm being paid by the government to go around and annoy people and kind of flash my headlights at people. I don't know. Unless they've signed an NDA or unless they're under the penalty of like death or something. You know, who knows? But I don't know. I'm always looking to kind of like different possibilities with this. Yeah. So yeah, here they are. This is exactly what I've been seeing, and I've put ongoing because they're far less common. I think the last one that I saw was with Indigo. They're far less common now, but certainly kind of the early 2000s, they were really quite everywhere. Another shared experience with Indigo. Right. Between 2018 and 2022, I get a call from what sounds like possibly an Indian call centre or something like that. But it wasn't asking me like, do you want to buy car insurance or have I had an accident or anything like that. It basically said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Okay. Odd telephone call. Fine. Not a problem. Weird things. Maybe got the wrong number. Indigo messages me. She calls me. And something really weird's happened. I got like sounded like an Indian guy asking if I'm okay. Asking if I'm sure. Okay. Somebody must have known both of our mobile numbers at the same time, known that we're connected, called us more or less one after each other. Myself and Indigo, we do not go around sharing our mobile phones with everybody. It is on my leaflet as a possibility that might have happened. I don't think Indigo shares her mobile with people. I don't know. It's an odd one. It wasn't even really a message. There wasn't selling anything. It wasn't a scam. It wasn't anything with car insurance. It was just, are you okay? Are you sure? Really. It's an odd one. I don't know. TI stuff gets weird. This is why we've got the clown horn and why it's called circus, because it just goes mental sometimes. Right, let's go in a slightly more spooky direction. Eastbury Manor Ghost Hunt 2004 to 2006. I was invited as a guest medium to go on this one. I've done a few ghost hunts, it's quite fun. You wouldn't think of it, but this is like a very old Elizabethan mansion, Tudor mansion, within a massive housing estate. It's really bizarre. So this looks like it's not a nice countrified area. It's not. Everywhere around it's like it's just a massive council estate with loads of kind of normal residential buildings. And yeah, so went there, and it was kind of divided into different groups of people, and there was like different mediums with different groups of people doing their thing. And this is where something quite interesting happened. These lights here, these are all green, or they certainly were during that period, green. The only way to switch them on and off is a little switchboard there. There are white lights, but they, for what we did, we had a circle here, and there's a group of circle of people, and there was, I think it was being filmed as well actually. I'd love to get the video of it. They switched off all the white lights, and there was just these green lights on. And I said the classic mediumship thing. I said, if there's anyone there, could you please let us know, give us a sign. Immediately, one bank of green lights went off. These ones are fine, but one bank went off. Now, put your rational, logical explanation hat on. Could it have been a fuse that had gone? Not really. You'd expect them all to go if it was a fuse. And would it have been somebody that might have switched the lights? So first of all, we would have seen it because it wasn't pitch black, there was green lights. And also, I was stood there. I was stood right there, and it certainly wasn't me. And not only that, I tried the switch again, and the green lights came back on. So I don't quite know how lights could go off if the lights come back on when you switch them, because it ain't going to be the fuse, because if it's a fuse, the lights go out, and that's it until you change the fuse. So that's a bit of a strange one. Interesting. Not much else happened with that one. I will say actually, I think there's kind of 3 floors to this. There's another level up. One thing that was quite interesting actually, we had a group of people, and I was kind of leading the investigation. Now I personally, when I see kind of haunted shows and ghost shows, I personally try and veer away from the negative. So when you get shows, whether it's kind of most haunted or similar type shows, what they want is the thrills and the spills and the scares and the jolts and the it's demons kind of thing. I find that a bit boring. It's like, okay, you're negative, get over it. You know, I actually more interested in the history of side of things and connecting with positive spirit. Actually, that's kind of like where I'm more interested in going. And within the little circle that we did upstairs, I actually got people to sit around in a circle, and I kind of asked people, we did like a protection prayer and kind of visualization. I asked the people in our group if there's anyone who would just like to flow with anything, or if they get any messages or anything that comes across. And there was one guy, and he'd never done this before. He started channeling, I suppose, a lady connected with the house, and it wasn't "boo, get out, we're going to kill you, die," and all that kind of thing. I get bored by that, I really do. This is a very nice lady, and she started talking about the house, and she started talking about her life there, and kind of like some of the connections there. Could it be proven? I don't know, but it was absolutely fascinating. It was a positive experience. He felt it was a very positive experience, and I actually find that more interesting than kind of like going around with gadgets and gizmos and kind of like, kind of setting off EMF meters and stuff. I find the information, or whether the information checks out, personally I find more interesting. Henrik's hairdressing ghost hunt. I know the year of it because it's on YouTube. So the back of these leaflets, there's little QR codes for Facebook and YouTube and blah blah blah. So if you go on the YouTube channel for Tune In Events, you'll see I was involved in a video actually called The Phenomenon, I think it is, by somebody who asked if I could go along as a guest medium as he filmed it, and I think it was like a student project or something like that. But anyway, yeah, he was filming it, and Henrik's, and the film camera, when you view it, it's got the date of it, so you can see. Interesting, this is a hairdresser's, allegedly quite haunted, and there's me, a bit younger, still got the piercing. 2 levels of it. There's like an old kind of staircase that goes up. I think the most significant thing with this, most ghost hunts actually not a lot happens really. It's you can be involved with the ghost hunt and it can absolutely have nothing happen for the whole time. Or if you're really lucky, it could all kick off and be like that all evening. It's very much kind of like a mix. I'm suspicious of ghosty shows where things happen every single episode. I can understand from a director's and a producer's point of view that you can't create a show based on nothing. Can you imagine kind of like doing a show in 24 hours, you're locked in a haunted location and nothing happens? And you know, the budget for it as well. Imagine the costs of kind of all the staff and the hire and everything. So you've got to have some kind of footage. So this is why I kind of suspect some ghosty shows might slightly be making stuff up, but I don't know. But when I go, I'm very honest with it. If I get something, I get something. If I don't, I don't. But this was interesting. We were in the top section of it, and if you just look like, imagine like a sort of a corridor type thing, and there was a group of us, ghost hunters, I suppose you'd call this. We were in one end, and I asked if there's any spirit there. Can you knock 3 times? And we got it. We got the, and you can hear it on video. And I swear as well, it was not in our group. So this was about the length of it actually. Our group was here, the knocking was coming over there, and there was nobody over there. It's only a little thing. I mean, you hear knocks and taps all the time on kind of spooky ghost shows. But you always wonder, is it the cameraman, is it kind of somebody playing up? But when it actually happens to you, it's quite interesting. It's quite fascinating actually. Other than that, not much else did happen. Actually, something did happen. There was like a little beauty salon bit at the top, and there were some signs on the table. They kept falling down, and we were kind of trying to work out, was it local traffic vibrating, or was it kind of us walking and kind of, and the ghost investigators were actually jumping up and down next to the table trying to get it to topple, and it didn't topple, but we'd go away again and we'd find it on the floor. George Hotel ghost hunt. I forget where this is, I forget the town of it, but that was a ghost hunt that we did. Again, not much happened except one thing, which was quite mind-blowing. That. Now, I was there when they took that photo. I don't know what that is. So this is the bar area. It's a bit difficult to see because of the image quality. You've got a human here who's kind of like leaning on it. This is the bar. This is the top booth bit. These are the lights. These are the drinks. That possibly a manager or something. This is where people are actually sat. And I didn't take this photo, but one of the investigators did. And it's not a case of double exposure or Photoshop, because he took it and immediately showed it to us. He said, "Oh, that's a bit weird, look at that." And this is way before filters. So the thing is with AI, it's great and lovely and fun and everything, but these days it's very difficult to see what's genuine and what's paranormal, because there are such things as apps with filters. You can get AI to add things and generate things and manipulate things. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to see what's a real UFO photo and what's a fake one. But this is 2011, this is before things like that. So technology was still fairly basic. That little, I mean, it's like a classic ghost, isn't it? So this particular George Hotel has got the Grey Lady. I don't know why it's always a Grey Lady, but this is the Grey Lady. And it wasn't there. So if some people might say, oh, it's a coat that's flown off, or someone's thrown a tissue or something like that. No, it's not. And there are photos without that. So you've got the bar without that, and then there's a photo with that. So it's not something that's just kind of flown off. Right, Shadow Man incident. Most people have probably had some spooky experiences, but this was quite a profound one for a number of reasons. Now, 2021, the dark era of COVID lockdowns. I think we might have just been coming out of lockdowns, or we might have had like an hour's exercise a day. Can you remember that? Can you remember you're only allowed out of the house, and it's only 2021, 2020, wasn't it? So this was on my hourly exercise walk. I'm unsure whether the full lockdowns were in place, but certainly this was on one of my walks. This is around about the right light level in terms of kind of like how it was. So it was kind of getting towards evening time. It was summertime, and I was walking along this pathway here. Guess what happened? I'm walking along here, and by the way, this is photo reconstruction. When this happened, I was not recording it, so this is me retracing my step, and that is a photo of a helicopter that I cut out and pasted there. This is a reconstruction, because you get some people saying, he's making it all up. No, this is a reconstruction, okay? So, but this is the route, and this is the area where it happened. It's near Hoddesdon. Okay, so there's a man in front of me in a field, and there's a police helicopter. I wasn't in spooky woo-woo mode. I was just going for a nice little walk. Helicopter, nothing particularly suspicious about that. Maybe they're looking for somebody, maybe there's a burglar, maybe there's a missing person. Who knows? Little helicopter. Okay, buzzing around the field. Okay, still buzzing around, and I'm still going on my little walk here. Okay, bit irritating, but that's fine. Right, the walk that I go on is probably about 5 to 6 miles, hard to say exactly, but it's a big loop, 5 to 6 miles. I go down through some fields, I go along a river, and then I go back to my house. This helicopter's still following me. This is probably about maybe a mile away from this field here, possibly. Bloody thing's still following me. Again, it's a reconstruction. And it's buzzing. I'm just thinking, oh God, really? Still going, this is the lock. Still going, still there, buzzing around. This is where things get really interesting. I sit down, this is the perspective of a park bench. I sit down, that thing is sat there looking at me. Police helicopter looking at me. Now, I'm not thinking spooky wooky, I'm not thinking aliens, conspiracy, government agents. I'm thinking there's going to be a ground unit turning up with dogs in a minute looking for somebody, probably me, because they're probably calling in ground unit saying, yeah, we've got him, can you move in? And I was literally expecting police to turn up and either do an arrest or ask me a question or something like that. You know, whether they thought I was I don't know, a burglar or someone up to mischief or a missing person, I don't know. And I sat there, and that thing was there for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and I just wanted a meditation. This is my regular meditation spot, and I quite like this little meditation spot. And that's kind of like, you've got a nice little lake there, little birdhouse, opened by Bill Oddie. Thought I'd get that in there. So this is a really nice view, and there's this thing just hovering there, watching me, looking at me. Why? I'm thinking, where's the ground crew? I'm thinking, well, where's the dogs? I'm thinking, well, where's the park wardens? Nothing. Then it goes. Oh, okay. Look to the side of me. I can only describe it. That's not it, by the way, that's just a sign. But where I was sat, there seemed to be some kind of object or animal or big thing that was beige that kind of like poked its head out and then went back again. It was just very quick. I thought, it's very weird. Looking for a golden retriever, fox, deer. So I got up and I had a look round. Nothing there. What the bloody hell was that? I wanted it to be like a dog or a dog walker or a deer or something like that. It was big and it was beige. I couldn't describe the features, but it was big and it was beige. And I just thought, this evening's getting a bit freaky now. Okay. So I got up, carried on walking. It's getting a bit darker now. Walking along the helicopter's gone, that's gone. So I get to this bit here, and this, by the way, is where I saw the girl running across the road. Okay, that's the same bus stop, and then on the other side there's another bus stop. She goes from there to there. So I'm walking along here. Notice you've got a river here, you've got a road here, and you've got horse fields here. And I think this might have been when lockdown was in place, and you only had the hour to go for exercises. And I don't know about you, but during lockdown, there's not a lot for people to do, and I smelled weed everywhere. Did everyone else notice that? There's like, everywhere you go, there was weed. And it was basically kind of like, I don't know, bored youths or something, and kind of like, you'd smell it and waft along, and they'd hang around different places. So that becomes relevant because I came up to here, and there's like a weir type thing. This is slightly lighter than how it was, just to show you. But it was very much coming up to, it was very much gone from twilight to quite dark. It was very dark, in fact. And from this perspective here, I could see very clearly a man, a torso and legs, and it was completely black. It was all black. I wasn't thinking spooky wooky ghosts and spirits. I was expecting the smell of weed, and I was expecting it to be either a dog walker or somebody kind of having, a crafty joint. That's what I was expecting. I carried on walking, and this shadow, I kid you not, melted into the fence and disappeared. And there was nothing there. There was nothing there. So, yeah, basically, if he'd hopped the fence, he would have splashed into the water. And really, that if he'd gone into kind of like the bushes or the horse field there, I would have seen him, because there wasn't enough light to see that. But no, he kind of disappeared into the fence. Very strange one. I mean, I know a lot of people see shadow figures quite a lot, but it was so prominent, and it wasn't my eyes playing tricks, and it wasn't kind of like a bush or a tree or something like that, because it was moving. As I was getting towards him, he was kind of like walking, and then he basically disappeared into the fence, and I thought, that's strange. So I carry on walking, and I get round to a pub. This is where it gets quite funny. The wall of the pub, there was kind of like flower bed type thing, and somebody plonked that there, a little alien, little alien. So on its own, the helicopter, the beige thing, the shadow man, and the alien, on their own, they don't seem particularly kind of like profound, but the fact that it was a cluster together, and it almost like this was a token of like, I don't know, we're screwing with you, or kind of like, the alien, if it is ETs, maybe kind of like, because this, I mean, it's so out of place. This is like a little country pub, and it's like people just don't leave stuff like that around, and somebody just left this little image there, so I thought that was quite funny. I wasn't particularly alarmed as such. It got my spidey senses up this particular night. I don't particularly go out looking for these things, unless it was a ghost, that kind of thing. So here we got some footage sent to me by This is the clock house in Harlow. Some spooky footage. Let's see if we'll go back and do it again. Watch. Where is it? There it is. Yeah. Watch that. That happens quite a lot, apparently, at this pub. The bar staff have said pints would fly off. Again, this is I think it's a Crown Inn. Look at that, 1, 2. Boom, boom. Interesting. And by the way, if people do have similar footage and they're happy for them to be shared, do let me know. I'd love to see them. And this is High Elms. Anyone know what rods are? I've heard of rods. These things here. These little rods things. I don't know how to pause it, but yeah, fascinating. That's it. Thanks, folks. So I think we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So if anyone wants to stick hands up, I'm quite happy to answer any questions. You could do, yeah, you could do.
Can I ask about the cars and the flashing lights?
Cars and flashing lights?
Yeah.
Oh, the
The
cars?
headlights.
Yes, yes.
Could it be also that perhaps there is an energy within you that creates that kind of effect that just automatically creates the light in itself? It doesn't have to be a human hand doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe there is an energy in you that is, if you like, picked up or scanned and reflected back.
Yeah, I'm open to all suggestions, so I'm not going to poo-poo any suggestions. Literally, kind of like, I really do always try and look for the logical and the rational with these things. I'm not somebody to kind of automatically jump to a woo-woo conclusion, but sometimes it's hard not to. I've never kind of seen it that way, but I suppose you could argue that with the sliding thing and the street lamps, if somebody is affecting street lamps going on and off, that's quite valid, that maybe could be affecting car headlights as well. How that's happening, I don't know, and why it's only happening with some cars and some street lamps and not others, I don't know. Maybe it's a vibrational thing, maybe it's an energy thing, I don't know.
Could it be a corresponding thing with the driver, that perhaps the driver has a similar kind of interest, a similar force, so that it's got, it's just energy, if you like, recognising.
Yeah, could be. I think with these things, with the subject of woo-woo, whether it's conspiracies or aliens or the spirit or whatever it is, we'll never solidly know concrete what any of it is, really. Even if we pass over to the world of spirit, who know? You know, there's no guarantees that they'll know either. There's no guarantees that our consciousness will know. We might or we might not. We don't know.
Just a point about the black helicopters specifically. In your video there, in your slideshow, the aircraft in particular was the Apache attack helicopter.
It was, yeah.
Right. Well, I've seen black helicopters where they're a civilian type used by the military. They're just plain black, no serial number, no identification marks, which is illegal.
Yeah.
But for an attack helicopter to be flying around your house, and I believe it.
I saw the gunship. Yeah.
That's very specific. You get that a lot with people that have witnessed a UFO or been near a crash site. For real.
Yeah.
It's not just any helicopter, it's a military Apache. And only the Yanks and us flying.
Yeah.
That's why they don't come from Russia or China.
I'm not going to spoil Indigo's talk because she's got a lot of information on this as well, but I will say that the UFO side things is quite prominent. I'll leave it at that.
As I say, one thing with the flashing light.
Yeah.
Wouldn't happen to have been police with radar or
No, these are civilian cars. Because that's another possibility that I thought.
Yeah.
Could it be police cars flashing the lights to pull you over? No, because also as well, they at some point, if you don't pull over, they put the blues and twos on as well.
You know, I mean, people will flash you to let them warn you that there's a radar track down the road.
possible. That's a possibility, but it was very much. This was mostly at night,
Yeah.
and this was kind of like everywhere, and it was in clusters. The thing is, with looking at the woo-woo, it's about the clusters. So when you have one anomalous thing happening just out of the blue, you can rationally put that down to just that was a bit weird. When you get it again and again, like the helicopters at 2 a.m. again and again and again, and phone calls again and again, the flashing of the headlights was again and again and again. I was just thinking, really, I was pulling over the car and thinking, there's really something wrong with my brake lights or something. There's nothing wrong with the car. So yeah.
So in the early 2000s, me and Mark here went down to Wiltshire, and we came to a crop circle, went out in the field, and there was a woman there with a camera, wasn't she? And this black helicopter kept coming down really low, buzzing us in the circle. And she kept photographing us, really antagonising this helicopter. We were a bit worried about it, really, because, like I say, it had no markings on it. It was completely black. And she uploaded those pictures on the internet. What we heard a few years later, she had cancer and died. And we don't know if that's she was a young woman, but we don't know whether she was going to have cancer or not. But we found out later that she did die. But she was antagonising these things.
Yeah.
The other thing was I had a thought, oh, it's going, because it seemed to go away. And as soon as I had a thought it's going, it came back. You know, it's like these typical thoughts.
I've had one specific instance, and I swear this is exactly how it happened. I had the helicopter. They don't usually do this, but I had a helicopter shine its searchlight in the window of my house, and this happened not too long ago. It might have been a couple of years ago. But it literally, first of all, you hear it buzzing, and you get like a chill feeling, just like, oh god, and you can feel it getting closer. And I open the window. I don't particularly like them, but I'm not really scared of them. So I opened the window to see what the hell was going on, and this thing shone its searchlight straight in the window, and I just shut the window, and then eventually it kind of like buzzed around a little bit, then went off again. Yeah.
With your narrative, that's happened to me, but it happened to me at a specific time in my life where I was beginning to sort of find myself and be more comfortable in myself.
Right.
And it sort of worked on me that it sort of shut that down.
Interesting.
So I don't know whether you were having anything in particular when that happened to you, but I do remember thinking that everything seemed to be on the up for me.
Right.
And then Robert and I have known each other since we were at school together, and he'd forgotten, but there was one instance we were in a pub one evening, and there was a couple of fellas sitting near us, and everything we were saying, they were talking between each other.
Exactly
or one was,
that.
he's saying,
Exactly
they're
that.
talking about the film they went to see.
Exactly that.
They went to see so-and-so film.
Yep.
They're talking about this happening.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, what's
Yep.
going on?
We
And
were followed.
it really freaked me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we were followed once all the way from Dagenham, all the way to some friends we got in Chelmsford, actually to their road, all the way by a white van. So again, it was at a time when I think I was becoming more
Aware.
I'm just saying in myself, I was becoming more comfortable in myself. And this is really unnerving. And I certainly found these few instances, you suddenly don't want to go out anymore, or you don't want to be whatever.
It's an attack.
Yeah.
The thing about it, if I could just add, is with all of these events and these things that we're talking about here, it does seem to me that people with a particular sixth sense or resonating or vibrating at a different frequency and being able to perceive these frequencies, and this can sound a bit conspiratorial, but the thing is that
Or in the right place.
well, you know, I mean, I just think that some people who, because if we're doing this here now for the light, you bet your bottom dollar there's other people doing it for the dark.
Oh, absolutely,
And the thing
100%.
about that,
100%.
100%. So therefore, that's how we get on the radar.
Yeah.
Because they have their circles, they sense that, okay, we've got Indigo and we've got Andy. Okay, where are they? Right. And then we'll pick it up because they have their, not only will they have physical contacts, but they'll have their invisible contacts,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also the fact of the remote viewing. And I think that people like us here, across all the planet, or all the land masses, it is a threat to the status quo of
Exactly.
how humanity is owned as a slave. And we're growing.
Yeah. So this is why this talk that I was going to do is going to be a little bit of my life and things going on and the conspiratorial side of things. It became quickly apparent that my life was going to have to be one talk and the conspiracy side was going to be another talk. But my personal feeling is that we are living in a kind of prison planet. But I think there could be different purposes for it. This could be a DNA library for some kind of species, like an experiment. It could be a place to plonk troublesome souls.
Yes.
It could be literally a slave race to mine gold, as per Enki and Zachariah Sitchin and all that kind of thing. Sumerian tablets. What are the other theories about what this place could be? An experiment, a library, a school for learning for souls?
A definite school.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it could be all of these things. I think it could be all of these things. And
But
I
it's
think,
also been penetrating with other dimensions and other levels of frequency.
yeah,
It's doing all those things, but everyone seems to have a vested interest.
yeah,
And it's open faction time, open day.
yeah.
I had an out-of-body experience
Sorry.
once where I was taken to be shown a doll's house.
Yes.
What it was just literally a doll's house. My guardian was behind me, always talks behind me, and the doors opened and there were loads and loads and loads of shelves. And on the shelves, you sort of started slow down, you'd perhaps find dinosaurs or whatever. You'd go up and up and up and up until eventually you would look at moons and stars. Then the doors closed, and in front of the doll's house, as it were, there was a pond, and I was looking at the pond because all the while I'm conscious of this voice behind saying, "What are you seeing, Dodie? What are you seeing?" And then as I looked down, I noticed that the flowers around the edge or the bank of the pond, a little bit had fallen away. And when I looked, it was made of Lego. And as I saw it was made of Lego, so a hand came out of the water, tidied it back. And my guardian said, "Whose hand was that, Dodie?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Mine." He said, "Yes." And he suggested, the suggestion was that I was looking at a children's play, that what we are, if you like, are children looking at a system of play.
In other words, you're saying it's a console.
Yeah.
So I think there's many things going on. I think there's a lot of interactions. First of all, I would say that I believe humans are far more powerful than we think. And when I say I do kind of psychic work and mediumship and clairvoyant type work, it doesn't mean that I'm special or better. I believe that everyone's got that inherent ability if they train with it or work with it. And I think there is a force on this planet that would very much like us to shut up, sit down, get on with work and not rock the boat. And people like me come along with a big stick and rattle it inside the hornet's nest. This is why we're getting all the helicopters and the TI stuff. It's because we, and I say we as in kind of people who want to do good on this planet and light on this planet, which is you guys as well, we are the ones that want to change this world, and we represent a threat to the status quo. If our world leaders wanted peace, they could have peace in just like that, if they wanted to. However, being members of Skull and Bones Club and various secret organisations, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bohemian Grove, Masons, not all Masons are bad by the way, but the higher up you go in these secret societies, the darker it gets. And then we have a look at Jimmy Savile, and then we have a look at Jeffrey Epstein, and then we have a look at all of these dark demonic things going on. The problem is that this planet has a demon problem, but the demons haven't got pitchforks and red skin. They're wearing suits and they're telling you to get little jibby jabs, and they're telling you that there's too many people on this planet and that we all need to shut up and just do as we're told. And we're here to say, screw you, we want a better humanity.
Just one thing, going back to the helicopters briefly, seeing those pictures triggered something. We were on just one of our routine earth quests when we got guidance to go to places. And my mate which was busy doing the work, this helicopter turned up, civilian type, but plain black. And like you say, I don't get spooked by it, I just got annoyed by it.
Yeah,
Why don't you
it's
just
irritating.
go away?
It's an irritation.
That's the polite way of putting it. Well, I didn't have any of the ritual gear, I just had my dowsing rods. So just for a laugh, I pointed my dowsing rods at the helicopter. I said, I'm speaking on behalf of Great Spirit to the crew members of this helicopter.
Yeah,
Bless you and your families.
yeah,
Bless you for your life. Then I spoke to the elemental beings of which the helicopter was made. There's there, fire and water. Bless you too. Helicopter turnaround. When Richard came back, he said, "What did you do?" I said, "I didn't do anything."
Yeah. I actually feel sorry for these people in a way. Like the ones at the lower rungs probably don't know what's going on. They don't know the score, and they don't know really what they're doing. And they're just kind of following orders. But the thing is, following orders didn't work at Nuremberg, and it doesn't work now. Somebody had a.
So, the helicopter again. So, where is your house in relation to helicopters? Is it near a military facility or anything?
So the only thing, no, military no, but flight paths yes. So we've got Stansted Airport, Gatwick, Luton, the whole shebang, but military no. There are no military bases near me.
So you in Kent or Surrey?
Hertfordshire.
Stansted, but that's a similar.
Yeah.
The helicopters, if there were Apaches, they come from Worcestershire in Suffolk, the
Yeah.
British Army.
I mean, the thing is, I'm well aware that the British Army and the American Army have Apache helicopters, but what the hell are they doing circling my house? That's the thing.
What's the word? It could be a light exercise, but.
To do what?
Flying around, shining their light in your window.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Okie
When your house, regarding the teddy bear, is there any history to that house where you had?
No, it was a new house. It was built, well, I say new house. It was built in 1973, I think. No previous occupants and no previous ghostly activity. No.
You were so young, weren't you? It's almost as if this was a carry-on from another life.
Yeah.
So it was almost as if, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
As you heard me before,
Exactly
can
that.
you hear me now?
When I was kind of growing up, I always felt slightly disconnected from society. I'd never felt that I really kind of fitted in.
No.
And as I was growing up, everyone was kind of like into football and, you know, fast cars and blah, blah, blah. None of that interested me. I wanted to know what life was about and where we come from and where we're going and what UFOs are and what ghosts are.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand the sort of Mr. Smith thing that you're talking about, you know, like from the Matrix where they jump one to the other. Because there's been several times where various different people I might be interacting with, but suddenly the same element comes out of them at me. And I can't explain what it is or anything, but I see the change very profoundly.
Yeah. So it's like, the best way of putting it, it's hard to put your finger on it, but like a vibrational change, like an energy change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's not a nice one either.
Yeah. So the energy that I felt from the two people talking in the Brighton Cafe was the same energy or similar energy vibe as the sports centre, the psychic fair, and the narration. It's just, and I'm glad somebody else has had the narration thing because you know we're in a nutty conspiratorial kind of like community, I suppose you could call it. And it's nice to know that you're not the only one experiencing it. But the thing is, there's two things. First of all, I don't really care what people think. So this is probably going to go out on the internet. And I simply don't care what people think. If they think I'm just making it up, that's fine. But the second thing is, it's nice to know that I'm not the only one and there are other people that are experiencing a
Can
similar
I just
thing.
say on that though, that it's only now you've said it now that I recall it and I put two and two together. I've not thought of this for years. We're talking about 40 years ago.
Interesting. Wow.
And I haven't thought about it, but now you've said it, it's
Yeah.
that happened to me. And at the time, I just thought I was either paranoid
Yeah.
or that people were doing it, and it was my fault. I was being undermined, or it was something like I was a beacon that everyone can sort of take the mickey out of me. You know, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Do you think like the psychic phenomenon that is been about for many, many years anyway, do you think that they're trying to make it look silly all the time? We were talking about the programs out about ghost hunters and things like that, and they've got to have something, as you say, because it just makes it look a little bit, well, that's a bit silly.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think you go back as far as, say, Harry Houdini.
Yeah.
You know, who tried to rubbish
Point.
everything straight away. Look, he was showing tricks, he was showing how hair cycles did certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Randy as well, that kind of thing. Yeah, they've gone on about can't happen. And is it because they know it can happen?
Yeah.
But they try to say, well, no, that's too dangerous for people to know.
So okay, so
We don't want people knowing that.
yeah.
That's more
So,
like it.
so first of all, what I'd say is the true origins of magic were about real magic, and then it went from real magic. That's what magicians were aiming for, and then it went into the world of kind of like psychology and illusions and pretending and kind of not being actual real magic. But the occult simply means hidden. The word occult means hidden, and the occult is like that with magic, basically. And yeah, if we take the notion that we live in a controlled planet, the last thing that people would want that are in control is an awake, aware, spiritual, clairvoyant. Because if you're clairvoyant and you're psychic, or at the very least using intuition, you can see past the bullshit.
Absolutely.
You can see past the bullshit. When COVID happened, I was like, nah. So at first, and the thing is, people really need to question things. At first, I thought, okay, there is a genuine virus and there's a genuine concern, and I'm genuinely worried about this. I tell you what did it for me. BBC News had a video footage of people dropping dead in China, dropping dead in the streets, on the parks, and someone had videoed it, and people dropping dead. And I thought, oh my God, we're going to start seeing this in Europe and Britain soon. So then inevitably the virus came to Europe and in Italy. Then it came to the UK, which is always going to happen. And I was waiting for the people to drop dead in the streets, and they didn't. And the BBC never played that footage again, and they never referred to it again. It was never mentioned about the Chinese footage of people dropping dead. And the fact that they didn't even question it or mention it made me think, that's bullshit. So if the people in power have more awake, aware, intuitive people, they're going to have a real problem. When you get, I don't know, let's just say Labour politicians or Labour prime ministers telling barefaced lies to the public again and again and again and again and again, the people who are awake are going to be thinking, that's still bullshit. And then they wonder why they've lost all their local council elections. Oh, I don't know why that is. Why don't people support us? Well, maybe stop lying. That's you know. But we live in a world of bullshit. This is why I've got this. We live in a clown world. We are run by clowns. We could have world peace if we want world peace. And the last thing that people want that are controlling this planet is awake and aware people. So, yeah, going back to your point, we're attacked from all sides. So if you take the issue of clairvoyance, religion will tell you it's the devil. It's all evil. You're consorting with demons. And some of these ghost shows, everything's demon. Oh, we've got a demon here. Demons coming through. It's all about kill and death, and it's all destructive. So you've got that side of things. You've got science who says, no, it's all a load of rubbish. You're an insignificant, just random array of molecules and atoms, and once you're dead, that's it, finito, darkness, gone. And then you've got the school system also saying it's all a load of rubbish, and stop telling fibs. Kids are born psychic, kids are born clairvoyant, and then the system basically says, stop being so silly, and stop telling silly stories, and then they shut down.
And it's this materialism, because it starts in the primary school, but more, I found from my experience that the higher education, you probably found it yourself, the higher education disciplines, they're all essentially atheistic, or so many.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because they're based on materialism.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what discipline you study there.
Yeah.
Because it's all preconditioned.
Yeah.
And therefore it all filters down. So immediately you start to think outside of the box, or you start to think in a different sort of way, you're either ridiculed, laughed, or you're sectioned.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's a drip feed every day. You've got it at university, you've got it at school, it's repeated on the news, science. The thing is that if science was really truly open, it would be open to a lot of things, but there's a lot of money to be made in materialism.
There's a lot of money at stake.
Absolutely.
If you've got like university professors and academics who are slightly off kilter, even in the medical community with actual qualified doctors, if they go off script, but they're thinking about their pensions, they're thinking about their jobs, they're thinking about their mortgages, their families, maybe that promotion. They're thinking about all the things that could go wrong if you go off script. And in terms of the system, not only have we got a real problem with what I would say is demons, actual demons, but the rung below that, I'm going to say, is communism. We have communism infiltrating our education system, our councils, everything to do with kind of like wokery and all of that nonsense. When you get past it, when you look past it, it's Marxism. Have a look at Keir Starmer's little passport thing where he went to the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia back in the day, to go and study communism and how the communists were controlling their people. That went mainstream news, folks, back in the Daily Mail. And there's a little passport photo of him, and there's basically Czech writing, I don't know what it says, and it was basically a visa for him to go to the Czech Republic, back then it was Czechoslovakia, to work out how the communists were controlling people. And what did Chairman Mao do? The first thing that he did, was round up the dissidents, anyone with a different point of view. And the second thing was he went after the farmers and he stole their land.
So did the Russians.
So did the Russians, so did the Soviets. The Soviets, I mean, people talk about the Nazis and 6 million people killed. The Soviets killed 10 million. The Maoists killed 100 million people. And the Labour Party have made a pledge, I think, to destroy this country. But what's behind the Labour Party?
That's the key.
The secret societies.
That's the real.
And what's behind the secret societies? Demons.
Yeah.
We're at war, and it's not really, I don't view it in terms of left and right. I'm not a Tory boy either. I tell you how I view it: liberty, tyranny. Which side are you on, folks? Liberty, libertarianism, freedom, or tyranny, control and oppression? Yeah, that's that. I don't care about left and right. I don't care about Conservatives or Labour or Tory or whatever. I care about who is going to free this country, who's going to free the world, and who wants to oppress it. And we're in a war, and welcome to the front line. So thanks for having me.
Shout.
Yeah, that's right.
Hold on.
On the hang on a minute. When this goes out, this video, take a good look at it, because in this second half of this, there was loads of orbs floating about.
Really?
There's none now at this moment.
Yeah.
But in the second half, there was orbs flying all over the place.
I'd love to see that.
So when this goes out, the second
There
half,
was a really
there was
weird
none
one
in
that kind of splayed out.
there was none in the first
I was
half.
feeling cold over here as I was talking for the second half. But
weird.
I was feeling cold.
Yeah.
I didn't get that for the first half. That's it.
Yeah.
There was none in the first bit,
No.
but there was
One of
loads.
them actually went
And there's none now.
really weird.